will few minute delay on this YouTube. As soon as this gets set up, I think we're ready to roll.
Great.
Okay, we are streaming on both Zoom and YouTube, so we are ready to start at your convenience.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. First, we'll have the roll call. Commission Member Hennis, me, here. Commission Member Hines, here. Commission Member Lucas is absent. Commission Member Whitmore,
Here.
Commission Member McLaughlin is absent. While the room is open to the public due to the size of the meeting room and the social distancing requirements, no more than 30 attendees will be allowed into the room at one time. For the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia Executive Order 72, persons who have been fully vaccinated for the COVID-19 virus are not required to wear a mask. We will hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. At that time, the public is welcome to make comments unrelated to any of the public hearings. Comments related to the public hearing should be held until that item is discussed and the public hearing is open. We will do our best to take citizens' comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One, join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. Two, to join by telephone, you may dial in to one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you are calling in by telephone. At this time, we will proceed with the meeting. Do we have any citizen comments? I'll remind everyone that in addition to participating by Zoom or telephone, written citizen comments have been solicited for receipt by email, U.S. mail, and the drop box located at the front entrance to the County Administration Building and by email. I'll now open the floor to any citizen comments for any items not on the agenda.
All right, no one here present that wishes to speak. Let me check online. If you are online and wish to make citizen comments, please use the raise hand button now. Not seeing any. Let me go to question and answers. There are no question and answers and no chat, so we do not have any citizen comments.
Thank you. We now move to the approval of the May 12th, 2021 minutes. You all reviewed them. Any changes?
No.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as is.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved as submitted. Board of Supervisor report. Staff, do you have a report for us?
Yes, I actually have several reports at the May 24th, 2021 Board of Supervisors meeting. They had 5 public hearings, and they are as follows. The Thunder Bridge campground was both a rezoning and a special exception, and they were both approved per your recommendation. The Dominion Balcony Down substation was approved per your recommendation. The Chaos Mountain Brewery was approved per your recommendation, and they continued the public hearing until June 28th on the Dynamic Energy Solutions solar 5-acre solar field at the Alexander Farm outside of Fairfield, to continue to study the project and look for or explore additional resources, revenue sources that are available through solar projects. And so that is a bona fide public hearing that will be continued until June 28th at 6 p.m. On the second update I'd like to give you is the June 2nd TCO meeting. Of course, the tourism corridor overlay, that was Chaos Mountain Brewery, and they recommended or they approved the site plan as submitted. They did have some modifications to the color scheme. Rather than the burnt orange, they're going to use the same color that is on the natural bridge itself, just to try to blend those, have the uniqueness of some of the Chaos Mountain colors, but some tie-in to the existing hotel as well. The only outstanding item on that was discussed at the Planning Commission level and the Board of Supervisors level is the parking lot lighting. And so I'm continuing to work with the landowners responsible for the parking lot lighting, both for Chaos Mountain Brewery and the larger, since that time I realized that we're also working on the parking lot lighting for the larger existing parking lot that's overflow for Cottage Hill. And so those, of course, will be in compliance with the outdoor lighting regulations. But as far as board reports, that's all I have.
Thank you. We will now move to the Paige Gantz and Alexander Tallman public hearing. This is an application for a rezoning from the residential general R1 district to the agricultural and general uses A2 district.
Yes, and Miss Gantz is be joining us via Zoom, and I'm going to promote her to a panelist so we can give us a few. There you go. So Miss Paige Gantz and Alexander Tallman, 62 Brushwood Place, Lexington, Virginia 24450, has made an application for rezoning from general residential R1 to the general agricultural A2. The property under consideration consists of 24.972 acres per tax records on north side of Enfield Road, approximately 1 mile west of the intersection of Enfield Road and Kendall Drive. Enfield Road is Route 672, and Kendall Drive is a private road. The 24.972 acres is comprised of tax map numbers 74-A-29B, 74-22-2, and 74-22-3. The property is located in the Carrs Creek Magisterial District. If I could, I'd like to share my screen and go over, just get everyone oriented with it. I'm gonna pull up, in this case, my GIS mapping. Close out some of these layers. And so this is the existing zoning district on Enfield Road. Bear with me here. The yellow is the residential zoning district, and the surrounding area, white, is agricultural and general use. As far as the 3 parcels that are being considered to be rezoned, I'm going to turn off the zoning and pull those up. Bear with me. All right. Per the original zoning maps of Rockbridge County, the Tallman and Gantz property and all of the property east towards the city of Lexington between Enfield Road and Borden Road was located in the general residential zoning district. Between the original 1972 zoning maps and the 1984 revised maps, a large portion of land in this area was downzoned from the general residential district to the agricultural and general use district. However, as shown on the existing map here, the Gantz and Tallman properties were not downzoned. So again, this is the existing zoning map of the area, and so if you can only imagine, it actually started about this location here on Brushy Hill Lane, and then everything between Borden Road and Enfield Road all the way back to the city was zoned residential. Sometime between 84, I think it was actually the late 90s, these 2 parcels went through a down zoning. And at the time, it was the Spencer family that owned these particular parcels that are under consideration for the rezoning. The current use of the property is woodlands, and it has 2 accessory structures on it. The Gantz Tallman house parcel, which is identified as 60-A-90, 2.01 acres, as well as the Smith Tracks, and the Smith Tracks total 3.8 acres, will remain in the R1 zoning district. The surrounding property is primarily woodland. The property to the rear is mixed woods and farmland, and the property directly across the road. And while I'm finishing up, I'm going to turn off the zoning and turn on the aerial photos, so it sort of reiterates what we're saying. Again, the surrounding property is primarily woodland. The property to the rear is currently mixed woods and farmland. The property directly across the road is the Brushy Hill Tracks, 515 acres, that is owned by the city of Lexington. There is no public water or sewer in the area. With that, I would like to turn this portion of the presentation over to Ms. Gantz and add any details to the rezoning application or answer any questions that the Planning Commission may have or the public hearing may raise. With that, can you hear us, ma'am?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Chris.
Perfect.
I have no further comments to add. I think Chris was very comprehensive in his review there. But if you all have any questions for me, then I'm happy to answer them.
Have any questions? Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty dry.
Very good. Okay. At this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak? Okay. We'll now take comments via computer and phone. At this time, I'll ask staff if there are any citizens that would like to make comments. Zoom verbal.
We have 2 people that are attendees. With that, we do have 1 phone number that I will allow to talk. If you so wish to make citizen comments, you can unmute yourself. I don't think the phone numbers have the ability to raise their hand. And so if you would like to speak, just unmute, and this was the time to comment on the rezoning proposal. Not hearing any, I will go to the question and answers. There are no open questions or answers, and we do not have any open chats. So last call for any public hearing comments for the rezoning on Enfield Road. Not hearing any, I'll turn it over to the chair.
Okay. With no further comments, the public hearing is now closed. We'll bring it back to the board.
I have nothing. I mean, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the rezoning of 24.972 acres on the north side of Enfield Road, identified as tax map number 74-A-29B, 74-22-2, and 74-22-3 in the Karst Creek Material District owned by Paige Gant and Alexander Tallman for the from the general residential R1 zoning district to the agricultural and general use A2 zoning district be approved.
Okay, we have a motion.
A second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are moving on to the County of Rockbridge Natural Bridge Collection Facility Work Faulkner Highway Site Plan Review.
Yes, in attendance tonight, we have Mr. Daniel Meyer with the Rockbridge County Solid Waste Department, and this is a site plan review. What I'd like to do is just what I'd like to do is share my screen again, and it is going to the GIS again, so bear with me here. Turn off my aerial photos so it can load quicker. So the Rockbridge County is in the process of buying several lots, as shown in your package from the Locker family, Mr. Locker, and those lots are shown in blue on the map here. And so bear with me here. Again, Rockbridge County has submitted the following plans to develop a staff collection center on the north side of Wolf-Faulkner Highway, which is Route 130, approximately 200 feet east of the intersection of Wolf-Faulkner Highway and Arnold Valley Road. The property is owned by Mr. Baldwin G. Locker Jr. The county is in the process of purchasing lots from Mr. Locker. The property is located in the General Business Zoning District per Section 605.02-30 of the County Land Development Regulations. Public buildings and properties of a cultural, administrative, or service type are permitted use in the business zoning. Under the current solid waste plan, the 4 existing unstaffed collection centers, that's actually an error. Under the existing current solid waste, there's actually 3 unstaffed centers in the area that will be closed and 1 staffed center that will be relocated to this proposed site, which is centrally located. The Rockbridge County Staff Collection Centers are open from Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. So with that being said, I'd like to pull up the package itself and just quickly review, more likely go over the site plan itself. Bear with me here. Focusing on the landscaping plan gives a good overview of the proposal. So again, these are the lots. This map was included in your in the package. And again, after we're not only purchasing the property through Mr. Locker, we're also going through the public process of closing a portion of a alley and a portion of the street that is highlighted in gray on the area. Once those are formally vacated, then I assume we will merge some of these parcels together to make one acreage. The whole area in this outline is approximately 3.6 acres. That's already been done. I apologize. Ms. Huffman said that the vacation has already been done, that the vacation of the streets and alleys have already been done. So what that means is automatically they revert to the center line. So for example, lot 31 and lot 32 now share a common boundary in the middle of this former paper street. Same as the street and alley here between 30, let's use this one, between 29 and 30, this new property line is now commonly, they grow by 10 feet each, and that's an automatic sort of boundary line adjustment, if you will. This map that was included in your package shows the 4 collection centers that are currently located in the area. The staff center that we have on Sailings Mountain is located right here. This is the Lloyd Tolley, the unstaffed center at Lloyd Tolley, and then 2 unstaffed centers that are actually in Arnold Valley. They will all be removed, and then again, as the map shows, in my opinion, one centrally located staff collection center with the hours that were reviewed. So in your package, you have the full-blown site plan, obviously, that shows the existing entrance, the flow of the traffic, where the containers will be, and where the compactor will be. With that, again, I'd like to focus on the landscaping plan. It is a heavily wooded, it's a forested area now. There obviously will be some earth movement to facilitate the project itself, but we also have some what I would consider foundation landscaping or entrance landscaping to help break up the view of the proposed collection center from Wark Faulkner Highway itself. There's also similar to other ones, this is actually the first one that the Planning Commission has reviewed. We've gone through 2 other ones, one in the Cards Creek area and one in the Fancy Hill area. Both of those were within the tourism corridor overlay. So of course, y'all don't do the site plan with that particular, with those 2 particular sites, but this is off of the corridor. This is outside the TCO district, and therefore it's a Planning Commission's responsibility. There is lighting associated with it. There is lighting associated with the project. And they will be the same lights that are being utilized at both the other 2 collection centers that we talked about. With that, I'd like to introduce Daniel and have him come up and really review any details of the project that I may have missed, or potentially answer any questions that the Planning Commission may have.
Thank you, Chris. Members of the board, thanks for having me tonight. Chris did a good job explaining most of the details. With this site, there would also be the 8-foot privacy like we have at Fancy Hill with the green kind of in between to give a little bit more privacy between the roadways and the collection center. But that was the only thing I think I wanted to add there as far as screening goes. Not an engineer by any means, but if you guys have any questions about this, I'll be glad to try to answer those for you.
Questions for him? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So this is not a public hearing, correct?
That is correct. This is not a public hearing. This is a
So
site
we just
plan
need a
review.
motion to approve the site plan.
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. And this is not a recommendation, of course. This is with the Planning Commission with site plan review. Y'all have full-blown
Mhm.
site plan approval.
You'll get a chance to look at that.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. We've got a couple of examples of what it's going to look like if you look at Cars Creek or
Straightforward,
Fancy Hill. So
Fancy
it's
Hill.
pretty
Mhm.
straightforward. Okay.
Um,
What's the timeline for this to be in service?
We're going to put the invitation out, probably within the next month, for bid, and probably looking at, 6 to 8 months.
Just from my knowledge, so we're going to close 3 unmanned centers. How many will be left in the county after these 3 are removed?
We currently have 15 unstaffed sites, so with those 3, it'll leave us with 12.
Well, there are plans to eventually eliminate the rest of them.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the site plan as presented.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, next up is the utility scale solar facility ordinance discussion. Staff, you're gonna review.
Yes, and I'm actually going to turn this portion of the meeting over to Mr. Chris Busso. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Thanks, Daniel. So what Mr. Musso, before I turn the floor over to him, just brief background. Obviously, at the last meeting, the Planning Commission instructed staff to explore developing a utility scale solar ordinance or solar ordinance. And so what Mr. Musso has been able to do is look at different Virginia localities, compile all the Virginia localities, and the large portion of this presentation will be showing or sharing what was found during that research. So with that, without further ado, I will turn the floor over to Mr. Musso.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. As Chris said, in your packet is a brief summary, bulletins out of the different localities. We've looked at several different counties throughout the Commonwealth on their solar ordinances. I think we put together a good collection of different ideas and basically commonalities. There are some outliers, but for the most part, there's definitely a common theme. And this presentation just goes over, it's a summary of those common themes. So start with permitted uses. For the majority of the counties, they're not allowing permitted use in solar except in industrial or manufacturing zones. It's mostly used by special exception, and they're only in agricultural business or mixed use, which is not applicable to Rockbridge. Obviously, we do not have a mixed use zoning district. The required documentation is pretty standard. It requires a site plan, description of the project, fully written description, landscape plan. Impact studies varied across the counties. Some required economic, some required viewshed, audible, environmental. Were all kind of scattered all over the place, and it's really up to the commission on where we're going to go with that. Decommissioning plan was required universally for all counties throughout the Commonwealth, pretty much, that I saw. Use regulations, height restrictions were varied really all over the place. Some wanted 15, like we know we've done in the past. Others were 18, 25, and some were just by approval. They are going through a special exception, so it's all kind of standard stuff that they're going to see anyway. Signage was pretty common, only very minimal signage. Setbacks varied again. Some were like all the way up to 200 feet. Others were whatever the given zone was. So those were, again, very, very varied, also by approval as well. Noise limitations, outside of the actual construction, they just wanted to see what the noise would be like at the entrance of the site, and that was about 60, 65 decibels, which is pretty standard. Visual impacts, an ocular impact study was required by most of the counties, and that is definitely required if they're within an airport, within like 5 miles of an airport. But if they're close to a road, they wanted to make sure that glare wasn't impacting, which we've already required in the past. Landscape buffer, I know, is an important part for the last solar facility that we've talked about, and it was only required in approximately 50% of the counties I saw, and there it kind of varied. Some counties like Augusta and Lancaster were very thorough. They talked about the width of the buffer. They talked about what kind of shrubs they wanted, and then other counties just didn't even mention it at all. So Again, it kind of varies back and forth, but there is examples of that being listed as an ordinance and use regulation. For the decommissioning packet, it was mostly just the notification of the county prior to the abandonment. I must have not included it here, but there was a talk of sureties and bonds for the price of the decommissioning of the plan. Just full removal. Some counties did talk about ground impact studies and testing the ground afterwards. I'm not 100% certain if that's because there are batteries actually getting put in the ground there or not. I think for the most part, with what we've had to deal with, it's just power lines getting, sending the energy back. So we haven't had to deal with batteries at all, but just definitely something to think of. And then the last thing I wanted to just touch on really quick, this was brought to my attention by one of the citizens via email. And this is just solar grazing. And I know the agricultural impact and the opportunity cost of losing that agricultural ground has been a concern for the commission in the past. So this is kind of an alternative or just something to think about as we go forward with this process. Solar grazing is just what it sounds like, basically having animals that are grazing animals on the site with the solar panels. This brings up some issues, obviously, with cows. They can't fit underneath normal solar panels. They sit too low, and then mountain goats like to climb on top of them and can cause damage. So for those two animals, you actually have to lift the solar panels higher than the 15 feet or whatever restriction may be set. And it usually costs a bit more money. So those aren't as common, but there are examples of them outside of the Commonwealth. Inside the Commonwealth, you do see solar grazing as close as Bedford. There's a solar farm that has sheep on that site. And it's definitely a way to supplement the income for the farmer and to keep that ground well maintained by the sheep, and you don't have to worry about a lawnmower out there, and you can still use it in an agricultural manner while also getting the benefit of the solar energy. That's really it. All I have for you, just a brief summary. It goes into more detail in your package. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to address them now.
Thank you, Chris. This is great. This is exactly what I needed to see. Where are we? Are we going to get a group together now? As it's this was sort of the beginning of it.
Yes. Yes. I do still think it'd be beneficial to get a solar committee together. We had not had the time to sort of fully develop that. We have some ideas that I'd like to share with you next meeting. But moving forward, what I think we'd like to do is move forward is have some draft recommendations for y'all to review, and then set that committee at next month's meeting. And there's some discussion I need to have some discussions with the supervisors on who would be on that committee. Obviously, we're talking about, I think it'd be beneficial to have up to two members from the planning commission, potentially 2 members from the supervisors, and what has been discussed internally at a staff level is potentially a representative from RAC has expressed interest, and then also the Farm Bureau. So we think that those 2 organizations could have 1 member on the committee, and then maybe 1 or 2 at-large members. I'm uncertain who would appoint the at-large members as far as community members, citizens of Rockbridge County that could all get together. But I would like to have, some direction before we get that committee together. Some staff recommendations, I should say, with the Planning Commission recommendations that not a draft ordinance by any means, but some direction that we think we're going on, and then have the committee more focused on those directions, or on potentially a draft ordinance, or
But I was thinking, it seems like you've given us a lot of good information. We could kind of come together, and it seems like we could sort of draft what we think should be in the ordinance, and you guys could sort of say, oh yes, have you thought about we could do that. I think a lot of times we get a lot of direction from you guys, and so we think in that direction instead of thinking outside the box a little bit. So that's why I thought it would be good to have a committee and just let them kind of read over this first group of, data points that you've come up with, and sort of say, this is what I think, and kind of what we think about for Rockbridge. But
I agree. And so one very cool thing that, out of this research is a lot of these issues that other localities are dealing with. We of course have been dealing with them on the 2 larger projects that we have, as far as obviously landscaping, decommissioning. We've talked about agricultural and how that works, and in some cases how it doesn't. But
In the decommissioning, and I just can't remember, I remember we talked about it in some other realm, there was a bond or there was something that was, just to make sure that if they were not around in 30 years when it needed to come down, that there was a bond or something in place. Do we have that for both of the ones?
We have had it
One
for
for
both of them,
BARC.
yes.
Okay.
But the only one we did not have a decommissioning agreement on was BARC. And truthfully, it was just so new, we
Right, we
hadn't.
didn't know to ask.
Yeah, we really didn't.
Right.
Truthfully, but with that being said, when Moeller's project came, what's considered the Busselberg Solar, we really started looking at how other localities are dealing with it, and what should we be doing. And again, I've always said it. I think we will still continue to utilize the special exception process for the A2, A1, and AT zoning districts. However, I think this ordinance will, in some cases, will help streamline the process. Obviously, the Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC was with the Planning Commission and the TCO for 3 months. And so I think that's a testament of what we can do with the special exception process. And I think the end result, as far as the landscaping plan, the height restrictions, the decommissioning agreement, all of those, again, are a testament of the
And
special
has that already
exception.
been approved by the supervisors?
So that was
couldn't
the part
remember.
of the update, that's a continued public
Continued,
hearing.
okay.
So they continue the public hearing for that particular solar field until June 28th at 6 p.m. Purpose of it was to further study the project and to explore additional or revenue sources to better understand potential revenue sources from the.
And
from
I'm
the
guessing
project.
they're also taking more citizens or, sending letters or talking to them, or is there?
Yes, so we had to do a notice of public hearing for the May 24th meeting, and we will do, since it's a continued public hearing, the same as the Planning Commission, we're required to do the same notice of public hearings. That's
It's just funny
as in
because
the
there were so many people that
newspaper.
are like, I didn't know anything about this. I'm like, well, it's not like we haven't been advertising it. So,
Yes, I've heard that comment a couple
Huh.
times as well, and it's surprising because
Right.
it's been in the newspaper. We've had it for 3 months. The TCO's had it for 3 months. Of course, the signs.
seems like every person that I talk to about it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, what? How do you not know?
I understand. So we are also, we actually need to go back out there. The sign has been up for quite some time. So we'll probably go out there tomorrow, the next day, take
Repost.
proof and make sure that if the sign, if it's not still there, to
Mhm.
repost the sign. But again, we'll also be doing
Sure.
certified mail to all the adjoiners and ads in the newspaper as well. Notice
Well,
of public hearing.
Do we have any more of these coming down the pike that you know of? I mean, I just wondered how fast, because this is a lot of good information. And I think
Yes.
for us, we need to get something in line.
We do
in the
have one
books.
in the Natural Bridge area, the Natural Bridge Station area, that is, that they have a signed lease agreement with. I don't think that's going to be, and I have talked with that particular solar developer. I've given them a heads up on what to expect, and I've directed them to the Planning Commission packages. I've directed them to the Board of Supervisor packages. He was obviously very familiar with the special exception process. But with that being said, I also gave him a heads up that we're working on the solar ordinance and what to expect from the solar ordinance. And he was uncertain if that particular application would be submitted before or after the bona fide solar ordinance. But he sort of, we had a very long, detailed conversation, and he sort of knew what to expect, including photo simulations, including landscaping plan, the decommissioning. It's a large solar developer, obviously, so he was familiar with all the requirements.
Is that one 2 months out, 3 months out?
I think about 3 months. So, what he was saying, it was about 2 to 3 months. My time frame to him was, I
Me,
think the
that-
solar ordinance is going to be about 2 to 3 months out. This was last week or whenever it was. And I said, this is up for discussion now, and sort of went through the process. And I honestly think it's going to be about probably 2 to 3 months until we have a public hearing on the draft amendments.
Right.
Maybe 2 months
Well,
on the draft amendments.
I'm just putting my 2 cents in. I think it needs to be sooner rather than later. I
Sure.
know how government works and it can take a while to grind anything out, but I don't think it needs to in
We were
this
also
case.
contacted by another lady in Arnold's Valley who said that she actually got an advertisement asking from US Solar, asking like,
Are you
they were
interested?
given a cost of per acreage, and are you interested in leasing your land? So
Mhm.
it is definitely still very active.
We've talked to a lot of people. I mean, we've talked to, I think I shared with y'all 1 month, in one day, I got 4 phone calls from solar developer, 4 different
Mhm.
companies. And so it's obviously the Clean Energy Act of 2020 with the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so with that being said, I do know a lot of people have been approached, but just for one reason or another, that they haven't come to fruition yet. Not saying that they are or not, but I do know a lot of it's on a lot of people's radar.
I was at W&L today, and I hadn't been over there in a long time because of all the construction, but I was in the parking garage and saw that they had all those solar panels, up over the cars. And I thought, wow, that makes it looks like trellises, up over there. That was a very aesthetically pleasing way to do that. So I know it's huge. So, all right. Thank you. And thanks, Chris, for all of that work. Do you have anything else? Anybody else have anything? All right, then we will adjourn. And that's the end. Ding.